Good morning, everyone. Welcome to week number 9. This week, we're really hitting that home stretch of the quarter. So what I really mean by that is that we're near the end. We've got just a couple of weeks left, so hang in there with me, and we will reach the end together. This week, what we are focusing on is chapter 36, but only just a few short pages, so page 798 through 804. Which is really dealing with how we interview patients and the information that we get from them from an interview. So an interview with a patient is not like a job interview. We're not really doing the whole I want to hire you thing. What we're doing is really getting a better view of the patient and helping them be prepared for the provider, helping the provider know their health history, their current status, health, and conditions. So sometimes what we'll do in the facilities we work for, we'll actually send out patient information forms or patient health history forms that they'll fill out prior to that visit. But we still ask all the same questions because we have some additional ones that get put on top of that. Some of the additional things that we'll look at are like the chief complaint, present illness, past medical history, family medical history, social history, and then we'll do an assessment of the body systems. So let's take a look at each of those categories individually, get a better idea of what they are. So your chief complaint is the first part of the interview. That's really, why the patient came into the office today. What is the presenting problem? It's made up of a variety of signs and symptoms, and it's important for you as a medical assistant to know the difference between a sign and a symptom. Now, signs are objective. That means that they can be seen by other people, where symptoms are subjective and are only felt by the patient. One really good one I like to explain to people, dizziness. That's a subjective feeling. That's a symptom for the patient because we, as a medical assistant, can't actually physically see dizziness. When you're taking a chief complaint, it's really important that you ask questions like what, when, where, and how. Asking those questions means that the patient has to give you an answer as opposed to just saying yes and no. Present illness is the second part of the patient interview, and that's really providing a more in-depth description of the chief complaint. It's going to be more detailed. It's going to give some of the symptoms, things including the onset, duration, and the intensity. Past medical history is really where we're looking at problems and all the medical diseases and medical problems that the patient has experienced in their past or been diagnosed with in their past. These can include things such as childhood diseases, major illnesses or injuries, any hospitalizations or surgeries. We're also going to look at allergies, their immunization history, current and former medications they've taken, and that does include any over-the-counter medications, as well as their last physical examination. Family history, on the other hand, is where we're going to look at the patient's blood relatives and their medical problems and their health history. We could look at, people generally like mom, dad, brothers, sisters, grandma, grandpa, aunts, and uncles. But for the most part, what we're most commonly concerned about and we will ask about is the immediate family. Mom, dad, brother, sister. That's it. Unless, of course, you have a grandparent or you have an aunt or an uncle or maybe a cousin who has a health condition that could be something you could potentially be passed on to the patient. Great example, I have a grandma who had lung cancer. That's really relevant to my health history because that could be something I could have down the line. Along with I had a cousin who had breast and bone cancer. Again, things that could be passed down to me that are important for my provider to know. Social history is really going to look at the lifestyle patterns that the patient has, things that may affect their health, such as smoking, drinking, doing any recreational drugs, what their occupation is, marital status. We're going to look at sexual preference, dietary choices, exercise patterns, and their sleep habits, because all of those can have a really big effect on the patient's health itself. And the last part of the patient interview is really the assessment of body systems or review of systems. And that really gets done by the provider himself or herself. We as medical assistants don't really take care of that. Alright everyone, that's really all I have. It's a very short video because you didn't have a whole lot to read this week. And because you don't have a whole lot to read this week, I really hope that you took the time to read prior to class on Wednesday, so that way you are prepared for what is going to happen on Wednesday. Speaking of what's going to happen on Wednesday, this week you will actually be holding patient interviews. Okay, you're going to work in teams of 2, so 1 medical assistant, 1 patient, and I'm going to work with you all individually. Okay, we're going to set up a mock patient exam room where we actually will just close that curtain that's right by the exam table there as you first walk in the door. I'm going to be grading you on your listening skills, on your ability to complete a health history form, which I will provide to you guys. I will also be grading you on your ability to document the actual clinical visit and keeping the records up to date. So now, I will be giving everyone a scenario when you come into class for when you are the patient. It's going to give you all of the information that you're going to need. And because I want this to be as realistic as possible, I'm going to give you all that information: date of birth, medications, why you're here, what you know, all of that information. I will also provide you, I'm going to help you during that process, but I want you to make sure that you know what you're going to be walking into when you come into class, so please make sure you're reading. Now, while the rest of you are waiting to go, you will be working on your discussion post and written assignment, because they are one and the same. It's going to be more of a charting exercise. Okay, just like we did in week 8, you're going to do the same thing for week 9, except it counts as your discussion and your written assignment. So that's what the rest of you will do as I am working with individual groups. Okay, so this should be completed by the end of class. So it's kind of nice for you. There's no written assignment, no discussion post this week, no responses this week. It's really just coming to class, being prepared for class, and doing this patient interview. Now, when I'm saying being prepared for class, I mean that you should have your blood pressure cuff, your stethoscope, your watch, your pens, anything that you would need as a medical assistant in the field to perform any other type of testing that you would do with your patient. You need to be prepared for class for that this week. If you are not prepared, it's not my responsibility to help you, okay? You guys are now, towards the end of this quarter, you should be carrying your blood pressure cuff and stethoscope with you, and as I've said for a few weeks now, watches are really a necessary part of your attire. So please come prepared to class. Alright guys, I will see you on Wednesday. Have a wonderful week. Goodbye.